Hey everyone, Rob from Southgate Media Group here. Before we get started with this podcast, we have a quick message. If this is your first time checking out the show, we love that you found us and we really hope you enjoy it. What we have to say is for the subscribers. If you enjoy our shows, would you please donate to help keep these going? We don't want to have to put traditional ads on these shows, but this does cost money. So we really do rely heavily on donations. To make a donation to the show, please go to our website, www.southgatemediagroup.com. Go to the page for the show, and in the upper right-hand corner is a donate button. It takes you right to PayPal, and you can donate whatever amount you want. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. And now on with the show.
Welcome, everyone, to the latest installment of the Bachelor Universe podcast. On today's episode, we will go over the thrilling final episode of The Bachelor. We will also go back and touch on the Women Tell All as well as the final three. So all that on this edition of the podcast. So let's get to it. Let me start off by commenting on the final three. The final three came down to Caitlyn, Becca, and Whitney. And they were in Bali, and that entire episode, that was, I decided not to do a podcast for that episode individually because not much happened. There was some monkey business with Caitlyn. Apparently, she does not like monkeys, and that was made aware on her date with Chris. Then you had Becca. Becca and Chris were on a date together also in Bali, and they basically kind of went around, talked about feelings and all that. And of course, you had Whitney. Whitney and Chris in Bali was a lot of kissing, a lot of affection. And of course, as it always is, the final three means there's overnights. So Caitlyn accepts her overnight, Whitney accepts her overnight, and Becca, well, that's when she admitted finally to Chris that she was a virgin. So the big reveal finally came in that episode that Becca was a virgin. She did accept the invite for the overnight. I'm guessing a lot of cuddling and hugging happened, maybe a few pecks. But yeah, definitely didn't take her virginity, that's for sure. So that was the big thing about the final three on that episode of The Bachelor. What ended up happening, for those of you who somehow missed that episode, was that Chris was pretty convinced that Becca might not be the one, considering she's a virgin and she's having issues opening up to him. What had happened was at the final rose ceremony, and it was in some holy temple. Everyone kind of looked like they were dressed in karate outfits. It was interesting. Anyways, so Chris takes Becca aside. He takes her aside and has a conversation with her right as the rose ceremony is about to begin. That conversation resulted in Becca basically convincing Chris that she is right for him and that she can show her emotions and give more to him and make it worthwhile. So onto the rose ceremony, Whitney gets the rose, and then it comes down to Caitlyn and Becca, and Becca managed to convince Chris that she deserves another chance, and Chris sends Caitlyn home. So that was the big shocker of that episode. An obviously stunned Caitlyn was sent packing home, and Becca got another chance, which would set up the final of Whitney versus Becca. So that was the overnight episode. Not much happened. It was very kind of slow paced. Not much happened in the episode. it was one of those episodes you kind of were hoping wouldn't happen coming into the season, where Chris's nice and calm personality wouldn't really get into it with anyone, and that was that episode. Not much happened, but besides the dramatic ending where Caitlin gets sent home. Next up, the following week was the Women Tell All episode, and that's an episode where a lot of interesting things usually come out from and we find out about. It's obviously recorded in real time, so it's set right now, way after the filming of the show has concluded. And the Women Tell All is an episode where you get the raw emotions out. And we had some of our favorites there. We had Britt, and Britt tried to explain her side of the story, that she really was in love with Chris, that she did not want to go home, and that Carly basically had backstabbed her. That was the big talking point, and there's a big back and forth between Carly and Britt. Britt trying to explain herself, telling Carly that she trusted her and that she turned her back on her. Now, here's the thing. Clearly, on record, we had Britt saying, and I'm sure the other women in the house vouch for that, that she could not live in Iowa. She would not be able to live in Arlington, and that when they visited the town, she couldn't handle it. And then we had seen that she had told Chris afterwards how much she loved Arlington and changed the whole story. What we saw on camera was pretty much her admitting that she wouldn't be able to handle that lifestyle. So, in Carly's defense, she was just telling the truth. She was just watching out for Chris and making sure he's making the right choice, and that Britt is playing a little game here that might not be fair to Chris. That she's saying one thing to the girls and one thing to Chris. So their encounter between each other was fairly intense on the Women Tell All. Uh, Obviously, there is no friendship between them, if there even was one to begin with. So Britt told her side of the story with a lot of crying. So the soundstage was about to flood had they not taken her off stage. Next up was Kelsey. Oh, yes, Kelsey, the presumed winner that I called earlier in the year. Wow. More on that in a few minutes. So Kelsey had her side of the story. The women clearly were all over Kelsey and attacked her and did not let her get the last word. A more subtle Kelsey appeared on the Women Tell All. She was more grounded, seemed a bit more remorseful, but yet still hiding behind her story, her amazing story, and trying to explain herself. She somewhat did, saying that, she wouldn't wish upon anyone for their loved one to die, and but the girls weren't having it. I mean, when you had Julia and Tara, who was at the Women Tell All, yeah, you had some few girls that we've kind of forgot about. Uh, but no one was buying that. Everyone is still against Kelsey. So you actually kind of felt bad for her in a second, that maybe she did think about it after the show filmed, everything wrapped up, and she's had some months afterwards, and maybe she kind of regrets what she did. But clearly, no one's giving her the benefit of the doubt. Then we had Ashley S. Yes, Ashley S. is getting her 15 minutes of fame really extended to a half an hour. She got to come up on stage, talk to Chris. They went over all her crazy antics, and Ashley S. proved what everyone else was thinking, that she is still crazy and that nothing's changed. She didn't hold back. She didn't deny anything she said. She confirmed everything that was asked of her. Um, Ashley S is a character. There's no doubt about it. There's something off with that girl. in a genuine kind of interesting and entertaining way. So Ashley S. Uh, held her ground, and Chris Harrison had asked Ashley S. if she would join Bachelor in Paradise. He did the first live invitation for Bachelor in Paradise to Ashley S., to which she didn't really reply. She gave no answer. She just kind of nodded and didn't say much. So there it was. Chris Harrison gets shut down by Ashley S. of all people. Interesting. Next up, we had Jade. Jade and her story with why Chris had left her. She was clearly shaken up and seemed that she has not gotten over the fact that she thought that Chris had left her because of her Playboy past. So an emotional Jade was interviewed on stage. Then we had Caitlyn, and that was kind of odd thing about that. She was just sitting in her seat in the audience. She didn't even come up stage for the interview, but obviously, what you could tell from Jade, not Jade, well, Jade and Caitlyn actually, they were both very stunned with Chris's decision, and you could tell that both women kind of were still looking for answers. So naturally, Chris would have to come out on the Women Tell All, which he did. Britt was first one that tried to make a case to Chris, and more tears ensued, and the studio was flooding again with tears from Britt. Boy, is she a crier. But she had tried to make a case to Chris that had it not been for Carly, she would have been at the final and not at the Women Tell All. And she had pretty much begged Chris to confirm that it was not because of her that he let her go, it was because of the rumors that he heard about her. To which Chris said that their relationship wasn't progressing as he had anticipated, and that it was not because of Carly. And then you had more back and forth between Carly and Britt. And I actually think Chris is telling the truth on that one. I think they had a physical attraction, but I think Chris really saw through her ways of changing stories, and I think he didn't feel as comfortable and safe with her to even get her to that point, to the overnights. And that's why he had sent her home. I think the physical attraction did fade. Then you had Caitlyn talking to Chris, trying to find out what had happened. Had Becca really convinced him to change his mind last minute? Chris kind of skirted around that whole thing, but it was pretty evident that Becca did change his mind, that it was very close, and that Chris was still torn in a sense that he took Becca's word and that he sent Caitlyn home. Caitlyn had expressed how shocked she was, how disappointed she was, and how she didn't really expect that to happen. She seemed very confident she was going to be moving on and getting to the final, which she did not. Up next was Jade, and Jade had questions, and the question was on her mind that um, why did Chris let her go? Was it because of the Playboy? Was it because of what she had told him? Chris had once again reiterated that it was not because of that, which I don't really believe, because I believe that factor was huge in his decision. But Jade had a real big issue with Chris's comment about her in a blog that he had wrote for People magazine after the fact, that was published recently actually, where he was kind of disgusted with her in a sense. Not that wasn't the exact word that he used, but it was basically the meaning of it. How he was shocked by the revelation, what her family had said about her, how she was wild and she was such a free spirit, and that's the side that Chris didn't see of her. So that was very shocking to him, and he couldn't process that, and that played, according to him, a bigger decision in letting her go. But Jade has taken it hard. There's no denying that, and she was visibly upset and disappointed and shocked, and hurt. Most importantly, I think genuinely hurt. So there's still a lot of feelings that were really in the air that night on the Women Tell All, where the women felt um, that they didn't get the right answers or that Chris wasn't completely honest with them. And in his defense, I think he did best he could, and that was pretty much it. That was the Women Tell All. It was a very intense episode with a lot of tears, but no true answers. And I think when you're in Chris's spot, when you're going into a final and you have your final two women, there's not much you can do to say, hey, he's not going to say he made a mistake by letting one of them go. I think he said that he was pretty confident with his choices, and that's the way he should be. Now, on to the final episode, the big, big final finale, Whitney versus Becca. Now, who would have thought that these two would have made it to the final? If you read my predictions and you listened to the podcast earlier in the season, I had picked Kelsey. Kelsey and Britt to be in the final. Now, Britt could have technically made it. Maybe she was a little bit more upfront and honest with him. She probably could have gotten to that point. Kelsey, not so much. I think that was the biggest shocker of the season was Kelsey's turn and how she didn't make it further than expected. You would think she would have been the ideal woman for Chris. She had been married. She seemed in the first few episodes to be really down to earth and like a quiet one and a person that really was ready for marriage and it had such a heartbreaking story about losing someone, a partner in life. And she turned out to be one of the biggest crazies and manipulators of Bachelor history, not only this season. That was one of the most unexpected turns that no one really saw coming, and that was Kelsey. I also had Caitlyn in my um, bottom half. I also had Becca and Tracy. Yeah, Tracy. Oh boy, was she. I don't even remember her. Clearly she didn't make. I believe she was a school teacher, but she didn't make it very far. She was out early on in the show. Uh, Becca, I did sense that she would get pretty far. I did have her as like the Marcus slash Chris. Well, not Chris Souls, the Marcus or Brian of the other season. Someone that could have gotten to a final or gotten farther, but didn't. But in this case, she actually did make it to the final. Had Whitney nowhere near on the radar. I thought she would be gone. She wouldn't even make it into the top 10, and yet she made it to the final. Really, Whitney and Kelsey have been the two big surprises of the season. Kelsey, in the sense that I really believed she would get really far, and Whitney, I didn't believe that Chris and her would find a connection, which they obviously did. So that was a big surprise. I think Caitlyn got as far as expected. I thought that she would get pretty far. I also had Jade make it into the bottom four, which she kind of did. So didn't completely miss on all my predictions, but also didn't have Carly getting as far as she did. And obviously, Kelsey. Funny looking back, but in the beginning, when the show started, that was a legitimate contender. Well, that's not the final. The final is Whitney versus Becca, the one that made the impression the first night in that dress when she came out of the car. It had every woman jealous in the house. in Becca. And then Whitney, the Disney princess with a southern slash Disney princess voice that no one really expected would get this far. Certainly I didn't, but she did. She seems going into the final as the most genuine and most in love with Chris. Now, on to the final episode. This is where everything changed. Final episode started with a trip to Arlington. Whitney visits Arlington. Her family, well, her family, not so much, but Chris's family loved Whitney. Chris's family and friends were just urging him to pick her. It's been one of the most surprising things that we have seen how unanimous a family could be. They haven't even met Becca, and they were just telling Chris he better pick Whitney because they were completely sold. Whitney had proclaimed how much she loved Chris, and there's no denying she is in love with Chris, and you can't hide that. And certainly the family saw that and noticed how much she cares about him. That was an easy choice. His friends were on board. The difference was that Chris was defending Becca, trying to make his family see the big picture that Becca deserves a chance. I don't think the family would have agreed with that, but Chris was playing defense attorney for Becca, and he makes a heck of a defense lawyer. So if that whole farming career doesn't work out, Chris, you have a job as a lawyer somewhere out there. If it comes to, defending Becca, that is. Becca was up next, a visit to Arlington, and things didn't go as smoothly as it did with Whitney. With Becca, Chris's mom just grilled her, uh, got her crying and confused and getting the type of answers you'd expect a mother to get. Uh, Becca just was not sold on Chris, and she just couldn't admit to being sold on him and wanting him. And Chris's mom playing the version of Dr. Phil, and Dr. Phil, you might be out of a job soon if Mama Souls decides to go into counseling, relationship counseling. She's pretty outstanding at it. And she sensed that Becca is not committed and wouldn't commit to Chris and wasn't ready to move. And that was a big worry. So then Chris goes and meets with the women individually. I don't think there's much reinforcement needed or reaffirmations needed with Whitney. She's all in. She had a picture frame of her and Chris. Now, I don't know where one gets one, a picture frame of a contestant and the prize of the show, Chris. But that was really kind of crazy and creepy. Had it been a guy that had a girl um, that he was going after, a picture of her, and she was the one selecting, had the roles been reversed, basically, he would have been the biggest creep ever. But Whitney gets away with it. It's sincere and cute, and there's no denying she is in love with Chris. Absolutely in love. No questions asked. So then it goes on to Becca. And Becca's the big wild card because Chris needs to know before the final decision comes through. Is Becca on board? Is she going to get married with him and move to Arlington? And Chris posed that question to her one on one, and he needed a response. To which Becca said, repeated, I don't know, about like 20 times in a row. I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. You could have made a soundtrack of I don't knows from Becca. And she just couldn't give Chris any answers. She did tell him that she would not move to Iowa initially, that she didn't know how long she wouldn't be able to move to Iowa, just because she wouldn't move for someone until she was ready and really genuine love. And if she was, then she'd move anywhere in the world. Now, to me, what that screams is someone who is conflicted and not ready for the next step. There is no denying that Becca was not completely sold on Chris. Those lingering questions right before the final ceremony, those are worrisome. And that would have been a huge gamble if Chris overlooked that and didn't take it to heart, which he definitely did. So Becca couldn't confirm anything. She did confirm that the fact that she would not be moving to Arlington anytime soon and that it would take her a while to develop a relationship, which is not exactly something I'm sure Chris wanted to hear. So on to the final. Yes, it was all drawn out and long, and um, but the final was held in a barn. Yeah, like an actual barn, not a fancy hotel or no, it was in a barn. So a pimped out barn though, may I add, a barn that had all kinds of uh designs and fancy things in it. It was interesting, but it was in Chris's barn in Iowa. Becca was the first one to arrive, and this is where Chris breaks the news to her that she will not be the woman for him. Smart move by Chris. He tells Becca that after deliberation, he couldn't get that confirmation from her and that he sensed that she wasn't ready, which looked like the truth. And surprisingly, actually, Becca took it all in stride and ease. Didn't seem too affected. She had told him that she's okay with his decision, and that was it. Then her exit interview in the car, she said that she was disappointed that she did actually care about him and was possibly falling in love with him, but there were no tears. Gosh, you could have used Brit right now. Bring Brit to shed a few tears, but that did not happen. So Becca kind of went, probably waiting to get to San Diego. She went out on a not so disappointed note, which just reaffirmed everything once again that she would have not been a right pick. I think she has still some growing to do. Then Whitney. So it pretty much means that he's going to pick Whitney, but will Chris Soules propose to her? Well, Whitney arrives looking great in a stunning dress, just as Becca's maroon dress was. Wow. I'm no fashion guru here or anything, nor do I want to be one, but boy, did these ladies look hot. Whitney goes in a barn. It First thing right away is they kiss. She kisses him, not knowing if she's gonna get picked or not. And then Whitney goes off on a monologue. Wasn't this the part where the guy's supposed to talk and explain what he liked about her and all that? No, Whitney goes off on a tangent telling him how much she loves him, and that was kind of brave because she was risking rejection right there and didn't seem like she cared. She just wanted to get it out there how much she loved him. And didn't take long for Chris to confirm his love, his want to be with Whitney, to which Whitney was basically shivering like jello or something like that. She was shaking. Um, Boy, I really wish they had the EMTs on standby because it looked like Whitney was gonna pass out any second. So EMTs, hopefully they were outside the barn because Whitney was hyperventilating with excitement, and didn't take long for her to notice that Chris was gonna pick her, and he gets down on one knee and proposes to Whitney. Yes, Chris proposed to Whitney. She absolutely says yes. And that was it. Whitney is your winner and Chris Soule's pick of season 19 of The Bachelor. Who would have thought that the Disney princess is going to get her prince farming and they're going to live a happy fairy tale together? Yes, you couldn't have written it any better. Uh, as I mentioned before, Bachelor Season 19, brought to you by Cinderella the movie. It just seemed fitting all along. And no, it wasn't Jade Orella. Jade was gone. It was Whitney, the actual Disney princess that I claimed her to be, uh, getting her prince at the end. And there was a cute scene with them embracing each other, and uh, that's how the season 19 ends. Brittany doesn't, Brit technically doesn't get far. That was the girl that had the number one impression on him night one. Connection, crazy chemistry. It was the Disney princess from Chicago, originally from Kentucky, that won Prince Farming's heart. It was a surprising season to The Bachelor, I must say that. Didn't see a lot of these twists coming. It was an interesting cast. I think Chris was who we thought he would be. He was genuine. He was looking for love and marriage, and he really came through. I think he was one of the rare bachelors where he really went with his gut and he made all the right decisions. Ultimately, Whitney was the best choice, and she was the one for him. And he did a great job of listening and being open to seeing the good and bad sides of some of these women, and uh, always focusing and keeping the whole need of a wife and marriage right close to his heart. And that was the ultimate goal for him, and he really met it with someone that seemed to genuinely fall in love with him, unlike any other girl in the house. I think there's no denying that Whitney was more in love with Chris than any other woman in the house. And when she gives you that stare, when she locks in those eyes on you, you are done. And I'm talking about Whitney. She had that look on her, that puppy dog, I love you and I'm locking you in with my eyes and I'm chaining you up to me kind of look. So Whitney was the choice ultimately, and it was the right choice. I think Chris sent everyone actually when they deserved to be sent home. I think there wasn't many times where you can look back thinking, "Oh, he should have sent this girl home," or "Why is she still around?" I think literally he made the right choice on a week to week basis, and he ended up being one of the better bachelors of all time, most memorable in a sense, how authentic he was, how different he was, how truthful and honest he seemed to be, and he stayed true to himself. This season didn't take us to lavish and beautiful locations. Yes, they did go to Bali, but the final was in a freaking barn, okay? That should say everything, that the show ended in a barn. And you visited places like New Mexico and South Dakota and Montana and all these Wyoming and oh, I don't even know where else they went, but every obscure place that doesn't get visited in the US, they were there on a bachelor. In Arlington, Iowa, I mean, you had like a bunch of limos come through in the final. Trust me, there are going to be no more limos ever that you're going to witness in Arlington, Iowa. So that was a one time in a lifetime type of thing. And but Arlington might get some tourists now after this exposure. Everyone's going to want to see where the Bachelor comes from. So that was it. A very satisfactory season, a exciting season with a ton of drama and crazy women in a sense. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Ashley S. and Kelsey. And manipulation. You would think that Chris would get the calm women, nice ones like Whitney and Becca. Uh, but just as Andy got a bunch of great guys that were really, none of them created too much drama. But no, Chris got a bag of everything in it. And it ultimately turned out interesting and exciting, and it was a one of the better seasons overall of The Bachelor in a long, long time. Probably a top three season all time in terms of drama, excitement, um, characters, and shocks and turns. I mean, who would have thought? Like I said, Kelsey would have been what she turned out to be. So great season. Then we are not done after Chris picks Whitney. Then there's the after the final rose special, as always, the live special, where Chris and Whitney get to come out together for the first time as a couple. So that was followed immediately. We got to see Chris come out, talk about the season, his experience on the show. Chris Harrison, his buddy, was there. Then you had Whitney come out, and for the first time, they were together in public, in front of everyone. They don't need to hide anymore. And it seemed that these two are still smitten by another. There was no set date for a wedding, but Chris had just said it. He just wants to enjoy going out with her, doing things, and being together, which is the right approach, really. You don't want to commit to a wedding right when you just start seeing someone after you couldn't see him for months. I think it's the right approach that Chris is taking with this whole situation. And it should be like that. They have time to set up a wedding date. I know Bachelor Nation always wants to hear when the wedding is or what's going to happen when, but taking it slower might be a right thing. And I know in a sense that if anyone's going to do it right, I think it's Chris Soules and Whitney. They did reveal that Whitney did sneak away to Arlington to hang out with Chris's family during the season, which is something kind of prohibited. You don't want people sneaking around, even though the rumors get out. And there's people like Reality Steve that give things away. And spoilers, they're available throughout the season. I don't partake in those. I think it's more exciting. They're available, but it's more exciting to watch it live week to week and share this with you guys and be surprised with everyone and not know necessarily what's happening or what's to be expected. So that's the best approach in that sense. But Chris and Whitney seem very happy together, and they were all over each other, a lot of kissing, and they seem like a legitimate couple. I think this could be one of those couples that actually makes it and gets married, and they're gonna be known as that bachelor couple that everyone kind of looks up to and wants to be. There was a surprise, and Chris Harrison was teasing a surprise throughout the night. The surprise was in a form, first surprise was in a form of a guest. Now, who could be coming out? Well, how about none other than Jimmy Kimmel? Yes, guess we will never see enough of Jimmy Kimmel on this season. Jimmy Kimmel comes out um, to kind of go over his role on The Bachelor, knowing Jimmy and the way he does things. Of course, he starts off with the hard hitting questions. He makes sure if Whitney and Chris are having sex together, which they both confirmed that they are. So no worries in that department. Uh, there was a mention of Caitlyn and Jimmy wanting Chris to hook up with all the women, to which Whitney actually responded that she's beautiful. So uh, there you go with that. Whitney taking the higher ground, but Jimmy trying to stir things up. Jimmy was funny. I think he added a fun element to the show this season. I did appreciate and like his guest episode host. I think was funny, and I think there's a lot of crossover between Jimmy Kimmel show and The Bachelor this season, as there always is. But I think this year added an extra dimension to it, and it was a perfect guy to kind of loosen Chris up, who could be shy. But Jimmy Kimmel was the guy, and he added some fun and excitement in the After Rose special live. But Jimmy had a present for the new couple. What could have been? What kind of present could Jimmy Kimmel come up with? Well, he comes out with his gift, which is Juan Pablo. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's not the actual Juan Pablo. It was a live, real cow. Yes, Jimmy Kimmel comes out with a real cow onto the set, to the surprise of everyone in attendance. Jimmy offers the cow named Juan Pablo, which got a kick and laugh out of everyone. Whitney and Chris Harrison, certainly, and Chris Soules. And um, so, yeah, that was it. A healthy big cow named Juan Pablo is now Chris's present. Now, I'm really actually wondering, did he take it to Iowa? Was this cow shipped to Iowa? Was this just something done for show? That's something to be investigated and looked at. I would be curious and interested to see how real this cow was. And well, shoot, it was a real cow, but how real is it that Chris is becoming the owner of it and is actually taking it back? It was a fun little twist. So that was it. The happy couple, Chris and Whitney, and we'll see where it takes them from now on. And now they have one Pablo with them, the cow. Now this wasn't the biggest surprise of the night. Chris Harrison had teased a huge surprise for the rest of the night, and usually what we find out on the After Roast special is that the announcement of the next Bachelorette happens, and that was the moment. There have been reports and numerous rumors for the last couple of weeks that Caitlyn was going to be the Bachelorette, and the announcement was supposed to be groundbreaking and completely overturn Bachelor universe. And what was this announcement? Well, Chris Harrison announces that for the first time in Bachelor history, there will be two, yes, two competing bachelorettes, Caitlyn and Britt. Britt, wow, that was quite a surprise. They had asked the live audience when they had mentioned who they were excited for. Caitlyn got all the cheers. Britt got some boos. Clearly, it wasn't the people picking Britt. Chris Harrison had mentioned that production had been struggling and agonizing over who should have been the Bachelorette, so they decided to go with both. Now, if it was up to the people, the word on the street is that 99% probably would have picked Caitlyn. So this must have been something where the producers really wanted Britt to be on the show and found a way to do it. Now, Caitlyn did not look thrilled whatsoever. She called this situation, well, not ideal, but it is what it is type of thing. Britt seemed way more thrilled and uncomfortable also. As you can imagine how uncomfortable Caitlyn must have been, basically having her spot to share now with Britt. Britt felt a little bit awkward, but happy to have that opportunity. Uh, the thing is, they were both awkward to each other. Definitely, they weren't the best of friends on the show. You could tell that. So it's going to add a lot of drama from the start. Drama and a little bit of unease. The question here is, how will the show play out? So, will there be two bachelorettes through entire season and roast ceremonies? Do they each pick a guy, or what if they like the same guy? How are they going to film the one-on-ones? There's so many unanswered questions. From what Chris Harrison had somewhat explained, I don't think they fully know what they're going to do, but he had mentioned something about 25 guys on night one having the power to decide who stays in the house, Britt or Kate. So apparently, it seems that one of these women are going to be voted off night one, and there's going to be one bachelorette. In that case, why would you have a placeholder? There really isn't two bachelorettes then. It's two women promoting the show until the start of the first episode, where one of them gets sent home. So they don't even get the experience of being a bachelorette. They just get to be there on night one. That doesn't seem that fair. I would think they would come up with some different ways, at least to have someone there genuinely get a shot uh, to find love. If it's both of them, at least have a bachelorette through half a season. Sending her on night one, if you're going with a two bachelorettes idea, I don't think that's going to be much drama or groundbreaking historical event if one of them gets eliminated right away. So I'm not sure what they're exactly going to do with that. I think there's still a lot of questions to be answered and that haven't been answered yet, and they're still probably deciding how to go about it. But the idea as of right now is to send a bachelorette, either Britt or Kate, home, and that's going to be voted on by the 25 guys in the house. I don't know how they're going to come up with that decision, how they're going to view these women, who's better, who's not, who's more deserving of love. I think we know that Britt might be there for more fun reasons and Caitlyn might be there for more real reasons. But Britt is just, I mean, gorgeous. There's no denying that. And so is Caitlyn. They're just two different women. One is a woman that most guys would never find themselves with, that looks as stunning as Britt, and the other is just one of those really sexy, good-looking women that that's fun, that it's kind of a ball buster in a sense, and a firecracker, and that's Caitlyn. So there's gonna be tough choices to be made. I surely hope that they actually give both these women a chance. I think real drama and craziness would ensue, and intrigue if they both were on the season throughout, and then maybe all the way to the end, and see if they pick the same guys, if how these rose ceremonies will be done. I think if that can be figured out, I think you would have one heck of a season on your hand. But that remains to be seen. Nothing completely decided yet. I think they're working through it as we speak. So we will see what happens when The Bachelorette starts off on May 18th. So it's not too far away. We're only a few months from that. So the filming should be starting fairly soon for The Bachelorette. And that is going to be a heck of an exciting season upon us. And expect the unexpected with Britt and Kate. Uh, Yeah, could have been Jade, possibly. I would have liked that consideration. Becca maybe would have been an interesting choice, although I don't think the whole virgin thing would have played out too well. I think Becca's a little bit too subdued and keeps close to herself. So yeah, I mean that's gonna be an interesting take. They got two women that are exciting and interesting for various reasons. I think they got in a sense the right ones. Although I personally would have preferred Jade over Britt. Uh, we're gonna get Britt versus Caitlyn, and we'll see what happens with that. It's gonna be really exciting and crazy, and we shall see what happens from that. So an exciting season of Bachelorette is upon us just in mere months. I Wow, and this was a great season of The Bachelor. So very good things are happening in Bachelor Universe. I'm excited to do this final episode for a while until Bachelorette starts up. I just wanted to thank all of you for tuning in every week, subscribing, listening to me on Stitcher and iTunes and SoundCloud, wherever you might be listening to, or through uh, the Chicago Now Bachelor Universe blog. That's where you can get me and my articles and this podcast. So, wherever you're listening or downloading, I much appreciate that. I wanted to thank my guest co hosts for a couple episodes this season on the podcast. I had Brian, Brian the coach, join me for an episode. Hopefully, you guys check that podcast out. That was an exciting, fun podcast with the coach Brian from Andy's season joining. Also had Lauren Solomon on the podcast. Lauren from Juan Pablo's season. That was fun to talk to Lauren about the show. She shared a lot of her insight, and same with Brian. So hopefully you guys caught those episodes. Those are really cool, fun episodes of the podcast. And you know what? I'll be back with it come Bachelorette season, and expect more surprise co-hosts. Maybe we'll get Brian and Lauren back on, or maybe we'll get someone new. So that's why you need to check out the show and support it and see who is going to be making an appearance in the future. For now, keep up with my blog at Chicago Now. Bachelor Universe is where to find me. I will be posting different rumors and news regarding the upcoming season of The Bachelorette, the upcoming insane season, what it seems like to be, of The Bachelorette. So don't go anywhere with that. And before we know it, the season's going to be back up and running, and May 18th is going to be here quicker than we realize. So until then, thanks everyone for joining the podcast this season. Thanks for listening, for downloading. It was an outstanding season 19 of The Bachelor. Chris Soules found love in a Disney type of way. And our new bachelorettes are going to be Caitlin and Britt. So for now, I'm signing off, and I will talk to you soon.